Before this video starts, I just want to shed some light on the incidents that have occurred over the weekend. Jeju SK have released a statement for which I will translate now. Jeju SK FC deeply regrets the racist expressions posted on individual and family SNS and the club's official SNS due to the sending off of the player after the match against Gwangju in the first round of the 2026 K League 1 match at the Jeju World Cup Stadium on the 1st of March. Any discrimination and hatred on the grounds of race, nationality, skin colour and cultural background will not be tolerated, and it undermines the respect and fair play values that this sport aims for. Jeju SK FC recognises this matter very seriously and will consider strong measures, including legal action against obvious racist acts, with the player protection as top priority. As a valuable member of the club, Jeju SK FC will protect the player to the end so that he can perform his skills without any discrimination or threat. Jeju SK FC will continue to respond firmly to discrimination and hatred and create an environment where everyone is respected. Now, the player in question, Italo, who did see red for his unfortunate mistimed tackle against Gwangju, did post this on his story on Instagram. He says, "I didn't want to comment on this subject, but when it involves people close to me, it makes me sad. It had already happened to me other times, but because I had a very strong mentality, I never kept it in my heart. This time it's different, because they went to my family and my girlfriend to make racial insults directed at me. I'm sad to know that there are still people like that in the world. Yes, we have a different skin color, but inside we are all the same. May God change the hearts of these bad people. I appreciate everyone's support." Now, it is worth noting that the comments to Jeju's club statement were flooded with fans in support of Italo. Racism has no place in this sport and no place in society, and it's time we kick it out and show racism the red card. Now, on to the match preview for FC Anyang versus Jeju SK. Hello everyone and welcome back to another Jeju SK video. In this one, we will be going through the match preview of FC Anyang versus Jeju SK. So, the last time out for both teams saw them pick up a point each. Anyang were away to Daejeon and Jeju hosted Gwangju. This is how the hosts for the weekend's fixture lined up. They started with a 3-4-3 formation, and Sergio Costa's Tangerines lined up in a 4-4-2. But it is worth noting that Italo will be unavailable due to his red card against Gwangju. So I will now be moving on to a bit of tactical insight about what to expect and what I believe will be the key outliers for the match. Now, looking at the highlights from Anyang's last game away to Daejeon, based on highlights, on the ball they may not be the strongest side, but defensively they were not too bad. As you can see here, just barely 2 minutes into the game, Ludwigsen picked up the ball for Daejeon, and already it was essentially a 3-on-2 for Daejeon. And barely even 10 minutes into the game, as you can see, Anyang seemed to be playing with quite a high line despite having 3 at the back, and I'm going to highlight it now. Here you can see the number 4 for Anyang, Lee Chang-yong, who is their right-sided centre-back of the 3. He's very wide and quite high up. In this still image here, Ludwigsen has just attempted to play a through ball to the other Daejeon attacker who did not quite time his run well, but I just want to highlight these two areas here. So if the other Daejeon attacker did his run correctly and followed the blue arrow, he would be splitting both defenders and have a clean run through on goal. In addition, this Daejeon player here underlined in blue is in acres of space himself. As we'll see later on, Anyang are a very direct team who are there for the counter. From set pieces now, Anyang seem to defend in a zonal fashion. As you can see from corners, Anyang have a very zonal marking approach. Jeju do not possess any aerial threats at the minute, so corners are not going to be Jeju's strength. Therefore, we can quickly move past this, as Anyang should be able to deal with anything from a corner position. Here we have Anyang with the ball, and their key man, Mateus, on the ball here, number 7, who is actually their left winger. He has found himself picking up the ball on the right hand side. What I noticed throughout the match on the highlights, he seems to have the freedom to roam around anywhere, as he is their key player to pick up the ball and create the opportunities. But as you see here, once again, Anyang's number 4, Lee Chang-yong, on the near side, crowding around Mateus, and that only means one thing. So here is Lee Chang-yong. There's a lot of space here potentially for Anyang to try and get the ball around. If Mateus was to pass the ball to Lee Chang-yong, he has an option down the line. And then of course we have this big gap in the middle for Anyang to play into, but unfortunately that is not what happened. Daejeon were a very high pressing team. Anyang did not cope well under pressure. That is something that Jeju will be having to look at, especially in Jeju's midfield with Lee Chang-min, possibly their strongest midfielder and of course the club captain. He's a very physical presence in midfield for the Tangerines, so he will be fancying himself against Anyang. So from that previous still image, Anyang did lose possession and Daejeon were able to counterattack fairly quickly. Now bearing in mind this would be Jeju's left hand side, so on the side of the pitch for Kim Eun-sung and Negeba, who were arguably the two best players for Jeju last weekend. Lee Chang-yong has dived in to attempt to regain possession for Anyang, but Daejeon were able to play around quickly, and if it wasn't for this trip from Kim Jong-hyun in midfield, then Daejeon have acres of space in behind. So as you can see on their attacks, Anyang push a lot of people forward. They have 7 players up, meaning there's only 4 back, so of course including the goalkeeper, there's only 3 back, and if Daejeon are able to counter quickly against that Anyang team, then they will be in some serious trouble. With the likes of Jeju, if Negeba is on form, obviously Kim Rung-sung is a very attacking fullback. Nam Tae-hee, very creative. He can often drop in the middle of the park as well. And on the right-hand side with Kwon Chang-hoon, Anyang could potentially be in a bit of danger. Even with possession, Anyang don't like to be pressed. Ludvigsen was very high on his press against Anyang for Daejeon. And if Negeba, who does possess a lot of pace, if he's able to get that press on Lee Chang-yong, then once again Anyang could be in some trouble. As you can see here, Lee Chang-yong is under pressure, so he forces the pass up the field, but he's dispossessed, and straight away for Daejeon it's potentially a 4v2 situation. On the far side, Anyang's Thomas, highlighted in blue, seems to be stepping up, though he's actually going the wrong way, causing more space in behind for the Daejeon attackers. Once again, if Negeba can keep that press on Lee Chang-yong, then Nam Tae-hee or Shin Sang-eun, depending on the area of the pitch, they will have a lot of space to play with potentially. And as we saw with the Jeju and Gwangju game, Kwang Chan-hoon was able to play plenty through balls in behind the defence towards Shin Sang-eun, and with Anyang's aggressive backline, despite only having 3, it's a very aggressive backline, and Jeju could be able to play around it. All they need to do is just be a bit more clinical in possession on the ball in front of goal. But I will give Anyang some praise. I'm not out here destroying Anyang completely, because as you can see in this clip, at 40 minutes 29 seconds, Daejeon are in this position, but just 6 seconds later, they have a back 4 in position and 4 players in midfield surrounding the ball. And that box shape in midfield is something that Anyang seem to do quite often, as we'll see later on in this video as well. They like to box off that middle of the park and force everyone out wide, where Anyang are stronger down the middle. They are stronger in the centre of the field and will happily have opponents play on the wings, just so much that it doesn't affect them in the middle of the park. Once again from another corner, Anyang have marked zonally. There is some man-to-man, so it is kind of mixed, but overall it is zonally. Into the second half now, and as you can see, Anyang have committed at least 5 players forward in this phase of play, and there are lots of gaps in behind the midfield. As you can see from this massive uneven circle that I've drawn, there is a lot of space in behind. And as you can see from this clip, just 4 seconds later, Daejeon have got themselves potentially in a 3 versus 3 situation. Now the back 3 of Anyang are running with their backs to the balls, recovering into their defensive positions. And the through ball was played, but Thomas did recover well and forced a shot wide. But it just goes to show how quickly Anyang can be broken down. As long as they're pressed, as soon as you regain possession, the gaps will open up. And that's where Jeju will look towards players like Lee Chang-min and Kwon Chang-hoon, who are able to play those diagonal passes, those through balls and defense splitting passes in behind over to either Nam Tae-hee or Shin Sang-eun. Now once again I just want to highlight it here with the blue squiggles at the bottom right of the screen. That is Anyang's left-sided centre-back Thomas, and as you can see he's very aggressive, very high up, and Daejeon have won the ball back in this screenshot. And as you can see already, there are 5 Anyang players, not including the one on the far side, but there are 5 Anyang players ahead of the ball currently. Now Daejeon, they're a very quick attacking, counter-attacking team, very direct with their approach as well. With Thomas who is highlighted in blue, being so aggressive, this is what happens. The ball is played up from that sliding tackle. Thomas has lunged in, completely missed the ball, and then Daejeon were able to break. The ball was played on the inside, and I just want to stop it here. So here there are 8 Anyang players either in line or ahead of the ball, and all it will take is the pass into that gap for Ludvigsen to run onto, and then it's a 2v2 situation in favour of Daejeon, as the attackers most likely will possess that threat going forward. And that is exactly what happened. If anything, it happened worse for Anyang, because here it's a 3v2 situation in favour of Daejeon, and this counter-attack did lead to the first goal of the game, as former Jeju man So Jin-soo did head home. Once again, even towards the end of the game, and I must say Anyang, in my opinion, were very fortunate to get the penalty decision in their favour, but I digress. Diving into the ball here, I know it's a little bit blurry, but that is number 55, the left-sided centre-back Thomas. And what that means is, despite Anyang having the 3 defenders back, their left-sided centre-back has potentially left this whole gap open, which Daejeon's number 9 could potentially run in behind, and if this pass is made here and a through ball is made here, then Anyang once again are in trouble. But once again here, just the sheer amount of space in the midfield. There is all of this space for Daejeon to run into, but once again, as the ball is received and picked up, the Anyang defenders were able to recover. And just 4 seconds later, as I mentioned earlier, they have this box shape in the middle of the park. And because there are no wide options for Daejeon in this situation, the shot was taken and it went wide. So defensively, Anyang will see that as a bit of a success. Now once again, as I did mention before, both Kim Rung-song and Negeba were the best 2 outfield players in that match. As you can see from their heat maps, which is a great addition to FOTMob, they are both very attacking players. Now with Lee Chang-yong and Thomas, the 2 wide centre-backs for Anyang being very aggressive and very forward in their play, the pace that these 2 possess on the left-hand side, even with Kwon Chang-hoon on the right or Shin Sang-eun up front, Anyang could be in a spot of bother come Sunday's fixture. So if we just ignore the kit numbers for a second and imagine that it is the actual Jeju kit numbers, Jeju in white, Anyang in purple, on this left-hand side we would have Kim Rung-song on the ball with Negeba as that number 9 supporting. Now Anyang like to press high, they like to commit bodies forward, so I would expect to see this a lot in the match. If Kim Rung-song was able to play that ball out wide, then that would force the press from Anyang into Negeba, and then Negeba plays it into Lee Chang-min, and then along that dotted line, if Negeba continues his run, and he does possess a lot of pace, that is something that Anyang will be very aware of, so they maybe could change formation, or they might tell Lee Chang-yong and Thomas not to step up, and not to be as aggressive, because in behind Negeba, Shin Sang-eun, Kwon Chang-hoon, all these players who possess that technical and physical ability will be able to bypass that press with significant ease. From this quick diagram that I've drawn, I would expect to see this a lot in the game, with Kim Rung-song and Negeba working together with that extra midfielder, whether it's Lee Chang-min or whoever replaces Italo in that position. But I would have Lee Chang-min just because of his passing range, his passing ability, and if he is able to play that ball splitting the Anyang midfield and in behind Lee Chang-yong for example, then all it would take is for either Nam Tae-hee or Shin Sang-eun to follow the ball, follow the run, get into the box, and Jeju do have easy chances to score. But overall, Anyang did play solidly against Daejeon. Daejeon potentially not as clinical or as lethal as they would have hoped. Daejeon had 64% possession versus Anyang's 36, with 17 shots for the home side and Anyang only registering 9. Anyang are a very defense-first team, and as I mentioned earlier, they will be happy with Jeju being able to play it out wide. However, as long as they don't get baited into the press, Anyang should be able to hold themselves up just fine, as Jeju didn't really pose any threats against Gwangju, but let's add some context, they did have 10 men, and of course with 10 men it's always harder to play the football that you desire. Now my match prediction, despite being away, and yes, I am probably being slightly biased towards Jeju, I do think Jeju do have what it takes just to get over the line and sneak a small victory and claim their first 3 points of the season. So my score prediction will be 1-0 to the Tangerines. I do think they have what it takes just to get over the line, but I don't think it will be a complete blowout like we have seen from other games and other teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one for the match review of this game.